I remember the moment that script came into my life. I remember literally standing in my doorway, having been just handed this script and starting to read it there, having just barely shut the door, and getting pretty deep into the script and realizing I was just still standing at my front door reading it. And I was just intoxicated by it. I had never read anything like it. I thought the dialogue was wholly original. And it had this thing that Diablo does brilliantly, but for some reason isn't as well known for. She's well known for her dialogue, but people never point to the fact that she's constantly surprising you with where her stories go. You Characters surprise you, her plot twists surprise you, and the movie never ends up being about the thing you think it's going to be about. Yeah, I mean I mean what's funny about that movie is I went out for the job and I didn't get it. They hired somebody else, and uh, and I was writing Up in the Air at the time. I was really disappointed because I wasn't even actually considered. They met a lot of directors and they wouldn't even meet with me. And then they parted ways with that director, who is now one of my best friends. And uh, and they went back out on the lookout. And at that point, Thank You for Smoking had come out and was a relative hit. And I got a meeting, and I went up, at that time against four other directors, and that time I got the job. And it's really interesting because Juno is so responsible for my entire career and my success. It changed my life. None of us expected it to become the hit that it was. None of us expected it to reach as many people as it did. And it started my career. It started Diablo's career, Elliot Page's career. It transformed, I think, Michael Cera's career, Jason Bateman's career. I think Kimya Dawson coming off of the Moldy Peaches, it changed her life. It did so much, and none of us expected it. We just thought we were making this little movie, it would play film festivals, and that would be it. So, one, look, you never know when it's going to happen. But two, you never know if that job you just got turned down for is actually the job that's going to come around and then change your life.
Mm. Well, I mean, what's interesting, because revisiting the film, as I said, it sort of crystallizes that spirit of the time. It captures the time very well, but also it feels timeless in the sense that, like, because I know, so one of the things that I know you guys were asked about when the movie came out was, the politics of the subject matter, because it is a subject matter that in different hands could have been spun very differently and gone in a much sort of more different, more, I guess, melodramatic, more
Mm,
politicized direction. Because of course, teen pregnancy and pregnancy in general is still such a a sensitive for a lot of people issue and a hot and a sort of I guess a red button topic.
yeah,
But because you guys, and I guess this goes back all the way back to Diablo's original screenplay, but you as a director as well, you guys so sort of neatly sidestepped so much of what you would think would be conventional about that story in terms of where you think it would go, in terms of you think it would explore, I guess, the sort of the teen melodrama of it more, or like really sort of dive headfirst into that or the political aspect. And the fact that you guys so sort of neatly sidestepped that and we're like, no, no, we're telling this, we have these characters that are so
right.
well realized, and we want it. We have a it's a different take on that story, and it still feels unexpected. I was rewatching it. I was thinking like I did not, in another hands, this could be so much more conventional, but because you decided not to go in that direction. In some ways, it almost contributes to its timelessness. The fact that it still holds up, even though it feels like a product of its time, but still feels timeless. Of course, that
Right.
is also down to how good the film is. But yeah, that was just
My
something that
my
was so interesting
father
to me.
my father used to say, "Don't confuse your plot for your location." To make a movie about adoption versus abortion is to make a movie about your location. The location of the movie is she's pregnant. What is she going to do? But that's not what the movie's about. The movie is about people struggling with what is the moment you grow up? How do you define becoming an adult? When should you become an adult? How do we preserve innocence? Should we preserve innocence? And you have four characters at the center of it, played by Elliot, Michael, Jen Garner, and Bateman, who all have different perspectives on what it means to grow up. And look, there's a moment when you're 16 years old and you have no idea what it means to grow up. And you think of your innocence as something casual that whether you dispose of it or not, you don't really care. And there's adults who, look, there's 30-year-old men who are terrified of growing up. And then there's women who define adulthood about whether or not they become mothers or not, whether they become married or not, whether they go into the workforce or not. And Diablo was exploring all of that. And I think if when I look at my movies, I'm hopefully never getting too bogged down in my location. Thank You for Smoking is not about cigarettes. It could have taken place in the world of guns, alcohol. There's a million issues. It's a movie about personal choice. It's a movie about autonomy. You know, it's about how do you be a parent. Uh, Up in the Air is certainly not about firing people. It's not about collecting air miles. Like those are just locations. And so that's one thing I talk to young screenwriters all the time about is, are you actually just making a movie about your location? And or are you actually telling a story about people who happen to be in that location?